Okay, it's just gone 1:45, and this is a final sort of administrative session. I think is how I'm sort of describing it. Can I take it that this session is being recorded? Yep, guys nodding at the back, thank you. And I think I indicated when setting sort of the programme, there's just an opportunity for myself, both with the programme officer and with the council. We've obviously come to the end of the stage 1 hearings, and it's just to kind of see at this stage just kind of broad roadmap programme to the potential stage 2 hearings, which I'm hoping we can hold later this year. As indicated before we took the break, I'm not expecting kind of details at this stage, but I think just broad indications as to availability issue or anything else that kind of needs to be sort of fed into our sort of considerations for how the examination moves forward. So what I'm intending to sort of cover in this session is obviously a number of action points have been identified as the hearings have taken place. It might be helpful if I give a bit of a steer on the ones that I see as kind of higher priority than others, if that helps kind of focus the council's resources. And then I just wanted to then move on to just kind of broadly how the time frame could look or work in terms of what needs to be done, and then just generally the kind of the process and what the time that needs to be built in. So as we've been going along, I started off reasonably well every day, doing a record of my action notes to Annette. I think I'm relatively up to date. There's probably a few bits and pieces from this morning, but nothing major. So hopefully they've fed their way through to the council. By all means, if there's something that I've missed, overlooked, or potentially misinterpreted, not necessarily now, but obviously if there's anything, feed that back to Annette, and I'm more than happy to provide a clarification or perhaps explain myself a bit further if I need to. In terms of the action points that have been identified, I've tried to number them sequentially, but knowing me, I've probably missed a number out or duplicated a number. But the ones that I sort of bring to the council's attention in terms of just sort of prioritising at this stage is action point 2, which is understanding around the time frame for the coastal mitigation strategy. I think that would be very helpful to me in terms of the transition to stage 2. And then it's, from my perspective, it's action points 7 and 8, which is understanding some of the site capacity work in relation to how the council looked at sites within the main urban area. And then action point 8 around the sustainability appraisal assessment, and I think it was particularly those sites that kind of got filtered out at Regulation 18, and if there is any kind of tidying up, for want of a better phrase, to just make sure that that's all consistent would be helpful prior to stage 2. I've then got action point 12, which was the ongoing threshold work with National Highways. We obviously heard from Mr. Finch on Tuesday this week that they're actively looking at that, and I think indicated a reasonably positive time frame to come back to the council. It's then action point 14, which was the council's offer to look again at compensatory improvements and how that could fit into whether there's additional content into policy SP7. And then finally, action point 16, which was the agreed, hopefully some form of agreed wording around site GA3, which we discussed yesterday. You seem to be almost within touching distance, hopefully, of some agreed wording for that site, but I appreciate it probably needs a bit more time and attention.
It does, and bearing in mind the size of the allocation, I'm contemplating whether it might be appropriate to separate it out from SP7 and give it its own policy number, similarly to SP8, which will enable us then to articulate some finer grain requirements.
Thank you. I'll leave that with the council. I mean, that sounds like a sensible way forward for that site. Those were the kind of immediately the kind of action points that I thought need earlier attention than others. Obviously, there are other things in there for the council to look at, but I think some of those are perhaps less urgent. The council will recall, I think it was part of matter 2 on the first day. There was obviously been presented with kind of various submissions about whether the ARUP 2014 or 2016 study in relation to the IAMP needs updating. I'm still reflecting on that, so bear with me, but it's not something at this stage I'm asking the council to do. But I will, as part of any sort of post-hearing letter, clarify whether that's something that would need to be done. Is there anything else at this stage from the kind of the various action points that the council wants further clarification on? As I say, it can be an ongoing sort of iterative process through the programme officer if anything does need clearing up. Okay. Thank you. Obviously, there's a bit there to do. We're obviously here on a Thursday in July. The council's probably been working on the examination for some time. You may have from your own perspective, and it's no criticism, we're all human. I've heard a lot of references to people being on holiday already, so I'm just mindful that we are entering into kind of July, August, September. So we do need to kind of be realistic about how long things will take and kind of be done. I'm not anticipating the council now at this stage, but maybe again through a net, if there's anything there that you think could take quite a bit of time, to kind of flag that up and let Annette know.
In fact, I'm going to start working on SP7A next week. But in terms of the team getting together, we are hoping to start that process from the 28th of this month. But we would hope on that basis to get something back to you through the programme officer by the 15th of August. Week commencing 15th of August.
I'm on. Okay. 15th of August is a Friday, so do you mean the following 18th? Yeah. Would that be for all of those items? Thanks.
That may include some others too.
Thank you for that. That's helpful. I mean, I appreciate we'll have that down as a kind of a guide at this stage. Obviously, things may change, but that's helpful at this stage. Obviously, I need a bit of time to look at some of that and reflect on it, and then take a view as to the timing of the matters, issues, and questions for stage 2. It may, in some instances, I might want to revisit some of these matters that we've already discussed, because obviously the principal, the lion's share of stage 2 will be everything else that we haven't discussed, all the other sites within the main urban area. Undoubtedly, there are other policies within the plan that are important to the council in terms of other issues we need to go through. My hope is we can sustain some momentum on the plan examination. I appreciate we've sat slightly earlier than the council had originally envisaged. I think realistically working back from that week in August, we're probably looking at the earliest for stage 2 hearings would be probably end of October, or the alternative could be the end of November, just reflecting both Annette, Mrs. Feeney's and my own availability. I wonder whether end of November just builds in a bit more flexibility, unless the council's note we want to push on with end of October. And I'll be looking at this stage another 2 weeks.
Sorry, I'm involved in the St Albans local plan as well, and there's going to be a potential for a clash, which I'm hoping to avoid. Those dates are not fixed yet.
Also, just to note that there's obviously October half term is the last week of October, so it might be a bit of an issue for public wanting to attend, and obviously officers as well.
So, subject to Mr. Shadoravian's diary, if we went for towards the end of November at this stage, just very broadly, I think the last 2 weeks of November. I think that will then build in sufficient time for statements to be prepared, further reflection. I think we'll still be ahead of the council's local development scheme still at that point, so hopefully that's all good. In terms of the stage 2 hearings, just in general terms, saying to Annette, for things like the site specific, I prefer to sit in person in a community where people who are going to be affected by sites can feel that they're being listened to and it's happening in their area. So certainly for the further sites, when we come to them in the main urban area, and any kind of revisitation of strands of what we've discussed at Matter 1, I want to be in South Tyneside. And I think there's some development management policies that would also benefit from being discussed here in the borough. But for the development management policies that perhaps have got less representations or less significant soundness issues, I'm very comfortable about doing that via Teams or an electronic format. So I'm probably looking at a blend of the two to kind of be more efficient and cost efficient for the process. So that's probably how I'm going to try and structure stage 2. So hopefully that can work, and the council's got a Teams or Zoom or something that we can use. Yep. Okay, good. Is there anything else in relation to a potential time frame for stage 2 I might need to be aware of before I do something rash, like commit myself to an inquiry somewhere? Okay. Thank you. There's nothing else on that. Before I leave the room today, this afternoon, can I just say as a matter of public record, to thank the council for organising these hearings and for being in the venue this last 2 weeks. I think it's worked really well as a venue. I think it's been good that it's been accessible, particularly to some of the communities that are closest to some of the issues that we've been discussing. I appreciate these things are never easy or straightforward to organise and pull together, so thank you to the council for doing that. And as I say, it's obviously been a slightly earlier than perhaps you were envisaging, so that's been good, and very hospitable here at the hotel, so yeah, thank you for that. I will say something further at the end, but at this early stage, I am grateful that the council engaged Annette Feeney. I think as an inspector, it makes one's job, one life, that much easier to have a professional programme officer who knows what they're doing. And I know all the work that Annette does behind the scenes that people don't see, engaging with people. So thank you, Annette, and thank you for the council for...
We second that, of course. So thank you very much for the manner in which you...
Thank you. I'm going to be spending the next 2 weeks reflecting on everything I've heard. I'll be preparing a sort of post-hearings letter that kind of pulls together where I think some of the issues are going. It may identify where, on reflection, I think there may be some further main modifications for the council to consider, or possibly additional work. So, for example, whether I feel we do need to update the ARUP. So that will be in that letter. Obviously, given where we are, I suspect I cannot issue that letter myself. It will need to go through a clearance process, but I'm hoping that will be in a matter of weeks, not months. Yeah, okay. Okay, thank you, everybody. That concludes the stage 1 hearing sessions. Thank you.
Thank you very much.